The voice, sharp, utterly devoid of warmth, tore through the mid-cabin quiet like a sonic boom, and suddenly, the whole flight was vibrating with adrenaline, not engine noise. Heads snapped around. Phones instantly popped out of pockets. And I swear to you, my hands were actually shaking as I gripped the handle of my slate gray roller bag, fighting a tug-of-war at 35,000 feet with a complete stranger who was shrieking that I had stolen her luggage. I'm Elias Vance, a music producer, and all I wanted was a peaceful, 5-hour flight home from Boston to Seattle after 6 weeks of soul-crushing label meetings. Instead, I got trapped in the most unhinged, entitled confrontation I have ever witnessed, and trust me, I've seen temper tantrums in recording studios that would make rock stars blush, but nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the calculated chaos this woman, let's call her Victoria, was about to unleash, trapped in a metal tube where there was literally nowhere to run or escape the sheer audacity of it all. The airport morning itself had been a disaster. You know the vibe, that industrial smell of burnt coffee and disinfectant, security lines snaking forever, everybody already frayed at the edges before the sun was fully up. My younger brother, Leo, was trailing behind me, looking miserable but carrying his own weight, and honestly, navigating TSA with my Nomad roller bag, the one with the ridiculously bright lime green luggage tag, felt like a victory in itself. We made it through, grabbed some terrible breakfast sandwiches, and now we were finally, settling into our window seats, 12A and 12B, ready for the simple, beautiful promise of home. I hoisted my bag into the overhead compartment with that specific traveler's care, making sure the handle faced out for the easy grab later. Inside wasn't just my laptop and the external drive holding 6 months of work on an album that could make or break my career. No, there was something else, something infinitely more valuable. I unzipped the main compartment, reached past the audio interface, and carefully pulled out a folded travel quilt. It was a small, hand-stitched tapestry, knitted from soft, muted wool in a pattern that was understated but just perfectly her. My mom had finished it 6 months ago, right before the cancer finally won. She was in hospice, her hands trembling, but she insisted I take it, saying I'd understand why she wanted me to have it someday. Holding it now, smelling the faint trace of her lavender soap still clinging to the fibers, I understood perfectly. It wasn't just a blanket. It was her way of still being with me, a physical anchor when I felt lost or anxious. Leo reached over, just touching the corner of the quilt with a soft expression, sharing that silent, heavy grief we both carried, knowing exactly what that simple piece of fabric represented, how sacred it was. I folded it back up, placing it gently on top of my messenger bag tucked under the seat in front, where it was safe, where it was close. Then she appeared. I noticed Victoria before she even reached our row because she moved down the narrow aisle like a Category 5 storm front. She was pulling an absolutely massive, clearly oversized burgundy suitcase that no human should ever try to fit into an overhead bin, and her face was already a mask of aggressive irritation. I watched as she reached row 10 and started struggling with her behemoth, instantly turning her fury onto the poor flight attendant, a young guy, maybe 25, named Ben. "This is unacceptable," she snapped, her voice carrying that specific entitled resonance. "I paid good money. There must be space for my bag." Ben, bless his heart, maintained his professional smile while gently explaining that she might have to gate check it. Her face went instantly sour, turning an ugly red. "I will not be checking this bag. Do you know who I am? I have connections. I could have you fired." The threat just hung there, thick and toxic. Eventually, Ben managed to wedge her suitcase into a bin that definitely should not have accommodated it. And of course, she didn't thank him. She just huffed and continued walking. As she passed our row, her eyes locked onto my slate gray roller bag in the bin above. It was just a half-second glance, but it wasn't casual. It was assessing, calculating, a tiny, fixed smile flickering across her mouth before she looked away. That look made every nerve ending in my body tense up, but I told myself I was exhausted, paranoid, and just let it go. Leo caught my eye, raising an eyebrow, silently confirming, "Yeah, another one." The flight leveled out, the seatbelt sign dinged off, and the cabin settled into that cozy, mid-flight lull. I tried to open my laptop, tried to focus on my audio waveforms, but I kept drifting, my eyes constantly jumping forward to row 10, where I could just see the back of Victoria's perfectly coiffed head. I blamed the stress of the week, trying to convince myself this stranger had no interest in my belongings beyond idle curiosity, but the little alarm bells wouldn't stop ringing in the back of my mind. Then the footsteps stopped right beside our row. I looked up and felt my stomach plummet. It was her, Victoria, standing in the aisle next to Leo, looking down with a smile that was pure artifice. "Excuse me," she dripped, the false sweetness almost choking. "Is there extra space in your row? My seat back there is absolutely cramped. They must have changed the configuration since I booked." I knew that was a blatant lie. All economy seats are the same, but I kept my voice polite. "I'm sorry, but we don't have any extra room," I said, gesturing to the lack of floor space. But she didn't move. Her eyes just drifted upward to my bag. "That's a nice bag you have," she continued, casual as a probe. "Very practical. Where did you get it?" "I don't really remember," I lied, not wanting to engage, but she wasn't taking the hint. She continued to hover, her heavy perfume suffocating the small space. Then her hand came up, almost absently, and rested right on the edge of the overhead bin. My pulse hammered. There was something predatory in the gesture. "It's just a regular travel bag," I said, my voice hardening slightly, wanting her to leave, wanting her to just go back to her own seat. Finally, she stepped back, muttering a quick, "Nice chatting with you." And then she did the thing that made my blood run ice cold. As she turned to walk away, her fingers brushed deliberately against the handle of my roller bag. Not a grab, just a calculated touch, testing the boundaries. "That's my bag," I said, quiet but firm. She paused, turning back with exaggerated innocence. "Oh, I know. I was just admiring it. It really does look just like one I have at home." A lie so insulting it made Leo whisper, "What the hell was that?" I murmured back, "Keep an eye on her, Leo. Something's not right." I was convinced that was just the opening move in a game I didn't yet understand. A few minutes later, she stood up, heading toward the lavatory at the front of the cabin, disappearing inside, the occupied sign clicking on. I felt the tension ease. "See," I told myself, just paranoid. But then, a flutter of white near my feet. I looked down, and there was a crumpled tissue. I bent to pick it up, and from that angle, I saw it. My mother's tapestry, tucked under the seat, was askew. Not much, just subtly enough that a casual observer wouldn't notice, but I knew exactly how I'd folded it. Someone had reached down while walking past and touched it. I sat up fast, my heart racing. She dropped the tissue on purpose, I realized, forcing me to lean down, and while I was focused on the floor, she tested the lower boundary. The bathroom door opened, and Victoria emerged, walking back down the aisle. As she passed, she slowed, her eyes sweeping down to the tapestry, confirming the violation. And then she smiled, a tiny, satisfied smile, like she'd just won the first round. In her mind, I realized with growing dread, she had established my things were accessible, that I wouldn't stop her. "Not yet," I told Leo, standing up and pulling the roller bag down from the bin, wedging it firmly between my feet where I could feel it against my legs at all times. I pulled the messenger bag onto my lap, the tapestry secured inside. Everything I cared about was now in my direct possession. We were circling the wagons, and in row 10, Victoria was still watching, still smiling. 20 minutes of tense silence passed, my legs cramping, my jaw aching from clenching it. I was right. The calm was temporary. Victoria stood up again, walking directly to our row, stopping in the aisle. The smile was gone now, replaced by something hard and demanding. She didn't waste time with sweet lies this time. "I need to borrow your bag," she announced, not asked. Her tone suggested this was a foregone conclusion. "Mine is completely full, and I have things I need to store. You can just lend it to me for the rest of the flight." She gestured to the bag at my feet, as if it were communal property. For a moment, I was genuinely stunned by the staggering audacity. "No," I said firmly, pulling the bag closer. "This is my personal property. I'm not lending it to you." Her expression darkened. "What do you mean, no? I'm just asking to borrow it. I'll give it back when we land. What's the big deal?" She took a half step closer, encroaching on my space. "The big deal is it's my bag, and I don't lend my belongings to strangers," I replied, keeping my voice level but firm, acutely aware we now had an audience. "You're being ridiculous," she snapped, abandoning civility. "So selfish and difficult. Why are you discriminating against me?" She was playing the victim card, trying to flip the script. Leo had heard enough, standing up abruptly. He's 6'2", and his height created a sudden, physical barrier. "That's not discrimination," he said, voice tight with controlled anger. "That's called having boundaries. You need to go back to your seat." Victoria looked around theatrically, appealing to the passengers like they were a jury. "Everyone see this? These two refused to help me. So rude, so selfish. This is what's wrong with people today." But then, the unexpected counterattack. Chloe, the young woman behind us, leaned forward. "Ma'am," she said, quiet but clear. "I saw you touch their belongings without permission earlier. They're not being rude. You're being inappropriate." Victoria whipped around, hissing, "You don't know what you're talking about. They're lying, and now you're lying too." Mr. Peterson, the older gentleman beside Chloe, nodded in agreement. "I saw it too. You've been bothering them repeatedly. Leave them alone." Surrounded by witnesses, Victoria's composure fractured. "Fine," she spat, voice tight with rage. "If you won't help me voluntarily, then I'll just take what I need." My heart hammered. I reached up and hit the flight attendant call button. "You just threatened to take my property without my permission," I stated clearly. "That's theft, and yes, I'm absolutely involving the crew." The galley curtain swept aside, and Ben appeared, moving fast, his expression shifting from professional concern to grim seriousness. I explained the situation concisely. Chloe and Mr. Peterson immediately corroborated the harassment and the threat. Victoria instantly transformed. Her stance softened. Her voice trembled. Tears actually welled up. "That's not what happened," she sobbed convincingly. "I just wanted to borrow something, and these two have been so mean to me. I'm frightened." The performance was Oscar-worthy, the shift from aggressor to victim seamless. But Ben had the witnesses. "Ma'am," he said, his tone professional but firm. "Passengers have the right to refuse lending personal items. If you continue to harass other passengers, we will have to take further action." Victoria played her trump card. "I know the CEO of this airline. I will have you fired." Ben didn't flinch. "You're welcome to file any complaint you wish when we land. Right now, return to your seat immediately." The steel in his voice finally penetrated, and with one final, venomous glare, she stalked back to row 10. I let out a shaky breath. It felt like a brief, tenuous victory. But this was Victoria. She escalated. 20 minutes later, with the cabin dimmed for the mid-flight rest, she stood up again. She stretched, looked directly at me, and smiled. A cold, knowing smile. Then she started walking toward us. Leo woke instantly. She stopped beside our seats, and, this time, she didn't say anything. She just reached down with both hands and grabbed my slate gray roller bag. The shock paralyzed me for a split second. She was actually doing it, trying to steal my bag, right here, right now, in front of me. My hand shot down to grip the handle. Leo lunged, and suddenly, the three of us were engaged in a literal, silent tug-of-war over my property. "Let go," I finally shouted, the words ripping from my chest. "This is my bag," Victoria hissed, her voice low and vicious, her face contorting with effort. "You stole it from me. You put fake tags on it." The delusion was complete, the narrative cemented in her twisted mind. She yanked harder, throwing her full body weight into it, pulling me forward. The physical strain was visceral, awful, and the thought of my mother's tapestry inside, being crushed or damaged, made something in me snap. I tightened my grip, fueled by a sudden, fierce resolve. I was not letting this entitled stranger violate this sacred thing. The cabin erupted in confusion and alarm, phones lifting everywhere. "Someone get a flight attendant," Chloe yelled, and then came the sound I needed, rapid footsteps. Captain Harris, the senior flight attendant, burst into the scene, flanked by Ben. "Both of you stop this immediately," Captain Harris commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos like a knife. She reached forward, placing both hands firmly on the bag, stopping the violent struggle. Everyone released the bag. Now, slowly, reluctantly, Victoria was the last to let go. I pulled the bag close to my chest, my heart hammering, my breath coming in short, ragged gasps. Captain Harris positioned herself between us, her expression harder than steel. "Sir," She turned to me. Do you have any proof this bag belongs to you? A professional, fair question. My hands were still shaking as I opened the bag, pulling out my wallet from an inner pocket. The luggage tag has my name, I said, pointing to the lime green tag. And I have the receipt from when I purchased this bag 6 months ago, and photos on my phone with metadata showing the date and time I took the picture in the terminal this morning. Captain Harris methodically examined the ironclad documentation. She then turned to Victoria, whose face cycled through fear and desperation. Ma'am, do you have any evidence that this bag belongs to you? I don't carry receipts. Victoria stammered. But I know it's mine. He must have copied mine. That's not evidence, Captain Harris stated flatly. Chloe and Mr. Peterson immediately chimed in, a chorus of supporting voices. I saw him board with that exact bag. She's lying. I have the whole confrontation recorded. Victoria's composure finally shattered. You're all lying. This is a conspiracy. You're discriminating against me, she shrieked, the volume painful. Captain Harris remained unmoved. Ma'am, we have clear evidence that this bag belongs to this passenger. You have no evidence to support your claim. More importantly, multiple witnesses have testified that you attempted to take his property by force. That's theft. She let the word hang in the air, heavy with legal implications. The hysteria drained out of Victoria, replaced by a cold, pathetic fear. I didn't mean. I thought it was mine. It was an honest mistake. An honest mistake ends with an apology the first time you're corrected, Captain Harris countered. What you've engaged in is harassment, attempted theft, and disruption of a flight. These are federal offenses, ma'am. Her legs seemed to buckle. Please, she begged. I'm sorry. Don't report this. I can't be banned from flying. That's not my decision to make, Captain Harris said, though her voice softened with weariness. This incident will be documented and reported. You'll likely face administrative penalties and a possible flight ban. Victoria was defeated. She was relocated to the last row, isolated and watched, the aggressive, entitled woman of minutes ago diminished to a hunched, pathetic figure. Captain Harris turned back to me. You had documentation. You stayed calm. You didn't escalate physically. You did everything right. As the plane began its final descent into Seattle, I looked out the window, exhausted but safe. Leo took a quick selfie. Mom would be proud, he said quietly. We protected her tapestry. We stood up for ourselves. The wheels touched down, and applause actually broke out in the cabin. It wasn't polite clapping for a good landing. It was a loud, enthusiastic cheer for us, for the resolution, for justice served, and it was overwhelming, touching, and completely surreal. As we taxied to the gate, I saw the flashing lights of security vehicles outside. Captain Harris announced that all passengers must remain seated until specifically released. This was the final act, ensuring Victoria couldn't escape. 2 airport security officers boarded, moving past the silent, watching passengers, all the way to the back. Leo and I were in the first group released. As we shuffled into the jetway, Chloe and Mr. Peterson fell into step behind us, trading numbers, promising to follow the investigation. When we finally reached the main terminal, passing a coffee kiosk, I saw them, the security officers escorting Victoria. She wasn't in cuffs, but she was clearly in custody, her posture defeated, her designer purse clutched like a useless shield. For a moment, our eyes met across the terminal corridor. I expected to see rage or defiance, but all I saw was a hollow incomprehension, like she still couldn't understand how her entitlement had failed her so completely. She looked away first, her shoulders hunching as they guided her toward processing. I felt no triumph, just a deep, hollow relief that it was truly over. We got home, and the first thing I did was hang my mother's tapestry over the back of my favorite armchair. It was safe, untouched, smelling faintly of lavender and home. That was the victory. The airline confirmed a 12-month flight ban and a formal logging of her attempted theft into the industry's security network. Victoria's entitlement followed her, and justice, slow and chaotic as it was at 35,000 feet, had prevailed. But here's the kicker, the thing that stays with me. Why? Why do some people believe the rules don't apply to them? That they have the right to claim ownership over something so clearly, physically not theirs, and then risk federal charges over it? It wasn't about the bag. It was about the line. I protected what mattered. I stood my ground, and I made it home with everything intact. Sometimes, that's all the victory you need, but I still can't shake the image of her eyes, cold, defiant, refusing to accept reality right up until the handcuffs almost came out. I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to draw a hard boundary with someone whose sense of entitlement was just completely unhinged? When justice was served, did you feel relief, or did you feel sorry for them? Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. I'm reading every single one.